Welcome to Out of the Noise podcast, a spiritual growth podcast. This podcast is about holding sacred space to help assist humanity to raise their consciousness through connection by having courageous conversations out of the noise of mainstream with heart-centered leaders, wisdom keepers, and divine humans expanding into their authenticity and soul purpose. We will explore spiritual concepts, practices, and shadow to deepen into your healing and the collective. Priestess Lilly is a medium, light activator, and heart-centered leader that is committed in raising the light frequency and consciousness here on Earth for us all. You can work with her and learn more by visiting www.priestesslily.com. Enjoy your spiritual learnings.
Welcome to Out of the Noise. I'm Priestess Lilly, a channeler, sacred heart healer, space holder. My purpose is to create content that will help humanity rise in consciousness through connection. I do this by facilitating courageous conversations that will leave you activated alongside heart-centered leaders, wisdom keepers, and divine humans expanding into their authenticity and soul purpose. Together, we strive to assist a higher level of consciousness and help each other. Today, I welcome back my beautiful guest, Maree Eddings. Maree Eddings is a leadership coach and mentor for women, specializing in change and transformational leadership. She is the founder of the Energy Academy, Influential Woman Collective, and Divine Leaders of Change, and the Great Grounding Plaza. Maree's mission is to redefine leadership outside of these old structures so that women can hold their true power and influence regardless of the situation or the people that they are around. Maree's work focuses on helping visionaries, change-making women uncondition themselves from the patriarchal beliefs and behaviors so that they can make decisions and lead through the discernment of energy and not from the old hierarchical mindset. Wouldn't we all love that? It is time for women to stop old patterns and behaviors and start leading spaces for change in every conversation and in every relationship. Maree's expertise come from 25 years plus of working with people in business and life and natural curious of why some people vocate their own beliefs and values in certain situations and the consequences of that. She is a trained NLP, Reiki, matrix therapies, and has created her own modalities of energy healing and coaching. Behavioral discernment for leaders and centers her work through her energy consciousness, vibrational mapping methods. Maree's clients are luminaries, chain makers, and heart-centered leaders, coaches, and healers who have the vision to lead change in this new era. They are here to connect with their wisdom, power, and truth, so their energy is influential voice in the room. And wouldn't that be magnificent, ladies?
Hello, Maree. How are you? Welcome back. I'm always excited when you come on my podcast because you have such a depth, a well of knowledge to share with the listeners.
I'm so excited to be back, Lily. Thank you so much for inviting me.
So today, this is just going to flow, and there are no questions that have been mapped out or anything. It's just a conversation that is going to be completely intuitively led. But I feel like this conversation is so much bigger than what is needed right now to support the collective, as many of us are awakened or awakening, but we don't know what the next step is. And I think that's what I feel that that's what our conversation is going to be about today. Like, what is the next step when you're awakened? So my first question is, possibly that I feel very called to ask, when you feel into your awakening, or people that are awakening, what are they awakening to?
That's such a good question, because I do believe that for people who've been in this spirituality or consciousness or in personal development, whichever avenue you have come to the space where you have been looking at yourself, you've been understanding that you're a person of pattern, that you're conditioned, that there's a whole lot of things that you do in the world that actually aren't you, that they are related to how you've been brought up, the environment you've been brought up, whichever way you've come to that. I think that provides us with this opening of connection, or we call awakening to self. And the times that we have been doing that have really been also within what I call the patriarchal system, within that linear, connected, there's always a right and wrong, something's always better, we use comparison. So we're still using all of our old conditioning to weigh up how awake we are. So, this person's more awake because they talk about this, and this person's less awake. So we're still using this hierarchical way of understanding or sifting and sorting ourselves in that system. And so what that means is we hit limits, or what I call capacity, where we say, well, I'm okay, it must be everybody else. And so then we sit and wait for everybody else to make a shift. And I believe we've hit that capacity of that system. So the system that we have been raised in, which I call the patriarchal linear system, which was very consistent how the Piscean era was structure, buildings, squares, boxes that we had to choose and pick. It's all been dismantled, moving into the Aquarian area, which is light and frequency. So for those people who've already, let's just say, awakened within the Piscean era, I'm feeling and seeing and also experiencing this level of frustration, but also it's not fear like it used to be. Like, it's a different feeling, but it's that level of, oh my God, how do we get out of this? And one of the challenges is because we're applying the way we've always done it, which is who's the next person who's going to tell me the next idea? Where's the next guru coming from? Where's the next book? Where's the next insight? And that don't exist because we've hit the capacity of that old system. So we're absolutely creating the new. And so any spiritual person, which this is where my personal frustration comes from, is sitting around having a wonderful time, sitting in their circles, drinking their green juices, singing Kumbaya and doing amazing work. Please, I'm not putting that down at all. Doing amazing work. This awakening is for you. This awakening is for me. This awakening is for all those people that have done that work over many, many, many years and have been influencing their environments. We're actually now called to create a new level of capacity, because the old level is just so full chock-a-block. That's why we can see the contrast so clearly now. That's why we look at the world and go, what the hell? But it's been like that the whole time. It's actually been like that the whole time. We're now going, oh, this is crazy town. But it's actually us seeing that we've hit the capacity of that space, and we are now being called to create the new spaces so that there's more room for people to move through.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. And I'm the same as you. I mean, I look at, the system, the structures, the world as a whole, the collective, and I just go, what the fuck? Like, what the fuck? And I mean, I know you and I have many conversations about it going, is this shit fucking for real? And yeah, it is. It is very much for real. And I think that's the thing, that when you sit in that energy, it's actually really disheartening. It can be, it's a void, it's draining, it's horrible. Where I look at that and I go, I don't want to be playing in that playing field. I don't want to be participating anymore, because it's not good for our soul, our vibration, our energy in ourselves, because when we get stuck in it, we don't know where to move to. And I think that's what you're saying, like, how do we create the movement to where we're heading?
And the reason why we feel it's more visceral and we go, oh my God, that's so, I can't be around that. be around that energy. I can't, like the contrast is so strong. It's like I think of it like the cow prod, like the poker. We're being poked to be so annoyed that we actually move into the next. On some level, when we were doing our spiritual awakenings, because we were doing it still as part of the old linear system, we were still using a comparative, going, well, I've done this course, or I've done this program, or I'm now aware of this and I've learnt my lessons. There was some level of comparison between us and them, or whoever that they were. And we were still holding space for them. We were still walking in environments that were very contracted and essentially allowing our bodies to go into dissension and then working them back up to, ascension, which is that whole fill my cup up, let my cup drain, fill my cup up, let my cup drain. Still a very linear process. That doesn't work anymore because the environment that is available to all of us is not linear anymore. It's frequency and vibration. And so, the universe is basically going, what do you think you're doing? That doesn't work. No. So all you can feel is that contraction. Whereas what's coming available to us now, let's call it the new awakening or the next awakening, is who are we in environments that are not linear? How do we actually create capacity and hold power for everybody in the spaces that are not linear? And that really rubs against our ego, because our ego says, I can do all this work, but I still need to be rewarded in the linear, like what's my title, what's my wage, what's my public standing, we still get how many likes have I got, we still getting feedback from that space. Whereas in the vibrational and frequency space, that they exist, but that's not what gives our ego a boost. The ego is now nourished by the collective. It's nourished by me having and you having. It's nourished by everybody having equity. It's like we look at the importance of how the world works differently. And for that to be reality, the awakened has to commit to their next awakening. It's not the people that we see that are fully contracted and unaware has to wake up. It's like they've got no space to wake up. They don't know how to do it differently because they're still really contracted. So until we create the space that is so far on the other side, it's like being in an elevator that people just keep coming in, and they've shut the doors. And you've got people there going, yes, but I know how to meditate. And yes, I know how to do this. But the doors have to open for people to be able to spill out. There's no room for those unconscious people to spill out. And so we need to create the next level of capacity. The next space.
Oh, so much to say. And so when you think about the next level of space and the next level of capacity, what do you see?
This is where we let go of. And so this is the thing that our ego will say. If I don't have a title or if I don't have a structure, then everything falls apart, right? So we have this idea that we've been born in that we need to have, a level of hierarchy. Somebody has to be in charge. The challenge is that is only relevant in environments where people give away their power and responsibility to others. So this space of capacity is born on the foundation of people taking responsibility and understanding their power. And people that are already awake know what that is. They just need to be committed to applying that every day, every decision, because we are changing environments with every conversation. We don't have to have the room booked of 1,000 people down on the stage and be called a guru to create change. We create change in every conversation where we're fully grounded. We create change when we're committing to our spiritual connection, intuition, and guidance. We are creating change when we lean into the divine masculine and create the environments of trust and transparency. So actually the shift from being, I can be shitty and go to confession and I'll be okay, I'm still a good person, to I actually want to live and be curious and live that aspect of me that's fully expressed. And therefore I don't need confession, not because I'm perfect, but because I'm always moving towards my own learning, understanding and connection. That's trust, transparency and wise. And I'm going to mess up because I'm human, but my baseline has changed. So instead of my baseline being okay because I'm always going to be better than that person because that person's really bad and lowering our standards, we now say I can be human and I have my own standard that I create, that I allow myself to continually evolve and surprise myself, because there is no comparison of bad and good. It's a responsibility of being.
Yeah. And I think that's something that, when we accept and start to live accordingly and being present in our life, just being in our life, I noticed that for myself, just, in the last year and a half moving to Picton, that has really shifted and changed my thinking, my everything as a whole.
Yeah.
Is it perfect? No, but it's definitely, I just think of the things I've let go of and the things I've shifted through around, my labels, my ideas, my conditioning that is just like really held, that linear that has really held me back.
It's interesting you say that because in the linear world, we swap labels. And I remember teaching one of my very first workshops, I don't know how many years ago it was, and I had one of the processes like the label maker and allowing people to become aware of the labels they carry, which were really insightful and so helpful for people because our labels create our identity. But what we were also taught to do was shift the label. We weren't taught to get rid of the label altogether. We were taught to, find the label, a better label. And that's the challenge with the system is we're never really deconstructing the system. We have this idea that we just need to be better within the system. No, the system needs to change so that we get to experience ourselves differently. And the system is crumbling. It's been crumbling for 4.5 years now. And it was never going to go quietly. It was never going to go without a fight. But you'll notice around the world what we would call world leaders, because they're in charge of a country, not saying they're the best leaders in the world, but world leaders are all struggling. They don't know what to do. As people rise up, as people take their power back, as people demand equity, as people are openly having conversations, as people are going, I actually don't need you, government. I can actually do this by myself. And when you think about the true role of government, which is not what this conversation is about, their role is actually to improve the quality of life of their citizens. Whereas that role took a turn 30 years ago, even longer than that, became obvious 30 years ago, where that's not what they were planning to do or had in their mind, and still not. So we're at these odds. We've got this government saying, I want control, and essentially the people are putting the middle finger up and going, no, that's actually not even your role. But the roles won't dissolve until the people take full responsibility for their life. And then the government can maybe one day step back into the true purpose of who they are.
Yeah, that's wishful thinking.
We definitely attracted some narcissists in the world leader space, haven't we?
Oh, look, I was just, when you were talking about that, I remember a conversation you and I having about the world leaders, and particularly our world leader that we had at that particular time, 3 years ago. And, everyone loved her, and it was like her legacy is leading from kindness. Now that was what she was painted as. And now I look at it and I go, what a false illusion that was, because there wasn't very much kindness happening in the end. And so it's interesting. I think that we're just talking about our world leaders, their capacity is done too, because they don't know how to solve the problems anymore, control the people, which is part of
they don't know how to control people. Yeah,
capacity, part of that capacity of the system needing to change.
Because they're doing what they've done forever, which is outdated. And the rising of people go, well, I actually don't need you for much, but what I do need you for, you do need to turn up for. I need you in disasters. I need you when the systems fall down and companies, really screw over individuals. That's when we need you. But I don't need you for my day-to-day. I don't need you to dictate to me my health I don't need any of that from you. That's my responsibility. Now, it's interesting when you say, legacy of kindness. It was only kind when it was convenient.
Yes.
When it wasn't convenient. And that's the real difference between the two, structures and systems we've moved to. In the Piscean era, we were kind when it was convenient. Then we could justify why we weren't kind because we'd be, using and theming. Whereas in the frequency and vibration era of Aquarian, that doesn't actually exist. So there's no kindness for convenience because kindness becomes a baseline. So we have to think about this like we're rebasing it's not really a bottom, but where the bottom is, where we start from. And we don't ever go below that. Whereas in the Piscean era, there are so much of the spectrum that we move through that we really get lost with where should the baseline be? And so when kindness is only when it's convenient, we still entertain oppressive systems. We still want to, we take people's equity away. We take their humanity away. That's old and over. And that's challenging all of us because we were born into a system and now we're being asked to create a system. So we're actually being asked to be that creator, but not the external creator. We're actually being asked to be the internal creator. So a lot of people who've done the awakening work are looking at the external going, I need a structure and a system for a workshop and to build an empire. And you might want to do those things, but they actually are not born in the external anymore. They are only born from the internal. And that's the main shift we have to do when thinking of creation.
Yeah, and I think that's really important because I know, we have conversations like daily. I look at myself and how much internally my world has shifted and changed, where serenity this year for me is all about walking with serenity, coming back home to self and allowing my intuition and soul to speak, harmonizing that to bring it more fully into the world, embodied wholly, if that makes sense. And I just think that's really important. People actually give away their power, I hate the word power, but give away their sovereignty by always looking for the external to fix them.
And for some, yes, and for some way it's because that's what we've been told. How do we feel ourselves? So I make myself relevant when I'm proud and connected to the level of job I've got, the level of salary I've got. So we use the external, I've always used the external as a way to validate us. Whereas you think about walking into a room that's full of sound and vibration and beauty, but there's no benchmark here. You're responsible for that feeling. And the internalization of it all means that we then determine what the external reflects to us, not the other way around. And that, I think that dismantling of that system will happen quicker because the world of vibration and frequency works quicker. So I don't like the word manifest, but we manifest quicker because we realise the actual power of our thoughts and feelings. And it's now tuned into the vibration of where we're sitting. Whereas, go back 100 years ago in the Piscean era, women still didn't have rights to vote. We're still struggling with our rights, but they weren't even seen. We're talking about domestic violence now. No one talked about it then. So it was really a hard slog, right? We expected a massive effort for little change. Whereas now we have more of a 1 for 1 or even a 1 to 2 to 3, where when we sit in our intuition, our guides are really clear in our space and embodied, what we then experience happens quicker. So part of it also is that mind trick that says, this is going to take so long. No. And that also freaks us out because we have to become really clear and responsible for what we think and what we feel. Not to be perfect, but to be embodied and true to our own desires.
Yeah.
which is a real personal thing, right? We don't often have the permission to say, what do you desire? And for not have the feeling like, oh, am I allowed to have that? Like, is that real? Oh no, someone's gonna tell me I'm an idiot, or I don't deserve that, or I don't need that. So that's the mind conversation that the environment we're in now doesn't give a tinkers about. It's like, what do you want? What do you want? And so we're going through our own sort of mind trippiness going, oh, I'm allowed to have, as in the tangible world, because this is an 8-year, it's a tangible world, I'm allowed to have tangibility in my spirituality. So not only am I working maybe in the dark or working by myself or hiding a lot of the work I do and a lot of things I think, I'm actually allowed to talk about that and be financially, I'm going to use the word rewarded, but compatible to the same frequency in a financial, tangible way. That freaks people out too. It's like, you know, and I think that, and this is probably a conversation for another day, but I think that's actually how wealth is being redistributed around the world.
Yeah.
Because the way people have created wealth in the past has been very heavy, taking advantage of other people. Not saying good people don't have a lot of money, but the structures and systems they've used to get their wealth, they're all oppressive, whereas these structures and systems are not. And so we're watching a lot of people with a lot of money, that money's disappearing and it's being redistributed around the world.
Totally agree. So totally agree. So when you talk about vibration and frequency, and that's where we're moving into, I think it's really how can people hold and clear their vibration and frequency so they know that they're consistently moving.
This is where the art of,
rather than capacity.
The first line is that I'm filling my cup up, emptying my cup. So that cycle we need to realise is over. And if you're still in your mind going, I'm going away to fill my cup up, I want you to really be clear of that language, because that vibrationally is outdated. And your body and you're free to ransom, really. I'm going to hold you back by having, because it actually has a suffering type victimhood underlying it. But it's also got the hero. Look at me. I worked really hard and I emptied my cup and I got exhausted, and now I'm going to go away like the hero and rest and come back and revive and be back again. So we have this whole storyline around that. All of that, when we're emptying our cup, we are not connected to our bodies. We're not embodied at all, and we're not grounded. So the new foundation, it's always been the foundation, but we've sometimes only used it when, again, we're filling our cup back up and we go, I can breathe. We now, as our foundation, daily foundation, is we need to be committed to our own grounding experience. And not only grounding practices, but grounding experiences, because we're always in the process of becoming, we're always in the process of grounding, because we're now in that space of always being. And so we're not looking for I got to this level and tick the box and now I can rest. And we see people's behaviour descend after that. We're now in this beautiful, amazing space of awareness that says, everything is always evolving. And that's going to take our ego a little time to get used to, because there's nothing to, stick the flag in the ground and go, I made it. It's more being in the flow of desire. And my word of the year is prosperity. And I originally thought that was all about cha-ching, cha-ching, money's going to flow. It is, but it's the embodiment of prosperity, which is a whole new frequency that's outside of the Piscean era. And so prosperity is around full embodiment and grounding and responsibility, not in a hard, you've done the wrong thing, in the who are you expressed? are you when you're committing every day to be in this grounding experience? And so we're in grounding experiences when we're driving the car, when we're brushing our teeth, when we're having a shower, when we're on the toilet, when we're in meetings. Like, our focus is on our own space of being grounded and being in grounding. And so that is the big shift, because that means that every environment you turn up in becomes more available to you in this space of frequency and vibration. So you're tuning into, then, when you're around other people, their potential. We're not focusing on their contrast or their conflict or the parts of them that really irk you or threaten you or you fear. We're then focusing to the parts of them that they may not be used to yet, but you've created capacity for them to see. But we can only do that when we're fully grounded, not experience grounded, but grounding. We're always in the space of grounding.
I think that's really important. Just so many light bulb moments when you were speaking, just for me. I mean, my word serenity this year. And, you know, I remember I've read probably about 20 books so far this year. That for me would have been mother's guilt. Like, I would have felt guilty doing that in the past, just sitting down and reading a book. There would have been so much like ego, guilt. Can you be doing this? You need to be doing that. You need to be doing, you know, and it's really, that's my self-nourishment. That's my connection. That helps me ground now, walking, you know. So there's been this massive shift just for me. I remember you and I talking about, if the world was grounded, what would it look like?
Mm-hmm. And you know what? I remember when I very first started doing grounding work, 15 years ago, and the word ground, people used to think like I'm an idiot, but I would work with like these leaders who are big CEOs, big companies, and also entrepreneurs who are running their own company, very successful. And my work was grounding them. And then they would be like, okay, what decisions would you make now? And everything became clear. And they thought that I was some sort of magician. I go, no, we're just actually grounding your energy. I remember doing a talk a number of years ago at a health retreat, and there were psychologists in the audience, and they'd come to this health retreat to, you know, they thought their career was over because they were exhausted. Again, fill the cup up, empty the cup type stuff. And they just couldn't do it anymore. After 6 or 7 years of working with people, they couldn't do it. And I was leading a talk that at the retreat about grounding, and I took them through a really, you know, quite easy but really potent grounding experience. And this woman jumped up and she said, "Oh my God, you've just saved my career. My patients don't have it's not the mind I'm working with, it's their body." I go, yeah, if you ground them before your session, you both have equity in that session. You're no longer trying to do their work for them. Because when someone comes to us in a space of, you know, disconnection for whatever reason, we're dealing with their disconnection. When we ground and we're in a grounding space, we're dealing with our own connection. So we've got access to more capacity of our mind and our body, but we also are not dealing with things we cannot change or control anymore. We're not dealing with those things. And so I worked with this particular psychologist for a little while, and she's like, my whole business changed. Like not only did I make more money, but I was happy and I was healthy and I wasn't exhausted, and my clients were getting amazing results. And so she fell in love and found a new level with her business because of that. I was working with school teachers, like about children. What if we grounded kids after every play? I said, well, they're grounding during their playtime, but they've got to come back and re-assimilate to the environment. And they started doing grounding exercises before they were doing quiet time. And they said the kids just became more attentive, because the kids were no longer, you know, trying to fight in their own bodies around whose energy they were carrying and their own energy that got a little bit, you know, full. How do we bring it back in? And so grounding is not a woo-woo magical wand. It's actually the base way our body works. Our body, this is actually our base operating system. And in the world of energy and frequency and vibration, that's basically the password. That's the entry level. If you're not grounded, you won't get in, because you won't be able to access that capacity. So if we're stuck in the old, it's because we're still fighting with the ego and fighting with the mind.
Yeah, and I totally agree. Some of the people that message me or want a session or, and they're like, I need it today or whatever. Sometimes it's, for me, it's like, no, I'm not going to answer that because you're actually not grounded. And,
and they may not,
weeks later, they're like, oh, no, actually, I've cleared through that. I've worked that out. It's actually this over here now. And you know that it's because they're in that fear or that, desperation, can't make a decision. What happens if I make the wrong decision? That there's no clarity. They're not, they can't get hear their own wisdom because they're in their own inner turmoil.
And energetically, it's like we're free falling because there's no ground. If you think about grounding, which is the earth, they're not touching anything. They're not in their body. They can't feel their body. They can't feel their feet on the ground. And for a lot of people, especially energy sensitive people, empathic people, we have in the old system and structure, we trained ourselves not to be in our body. We trained ourselves to escape because it was far too painful to be in the body because then you would feel everybody else's stuff.
Yep, that was me. That was totally me. Like I was running. I didn't want to be around people or anything. That was me. It's only probably in the last year that I've actually kind of got the shit show sorted to some degrees.
And in each evolution of ourselves and our children and the people around us, we're always asked. That's why it's grounding, not being grounded. We're always in the process of grounding, and that's daily practice. That can actually, so grounding in its essence is the release of energy vibration that does not belong to you, because we're always carrying and we're always entangled with other people. And when we're in the process of grounding, we're releasing those things that are not us. So we create a deeper relationship and knowing and understanding of what do we feel like and what belongs to me versus 80% is mine, but I'm always carrying 20% of somebody else. 30% of somebody else, and that gives us that feeling of not being able to have our own and our own desires and our own way of walking in the world. Like there's some level of sacrifice we have to make. But in the world of vibration and frequency, we are creating independent and deliberate entanglement. So grounding allows us to release the unconscious entanglement for us to be, and then we go, well, what is it that I want? What is the desire that I want? What is the people I want to be with? What is what we're talking about? And then we deliberately entangle that way. We are energetic beings, and so we are always in an energetic relationship with ourselves and with other people. And when we become consciously aware, what is the work of the vibration and frequency Aquarian era, that's what we're taking responsibility for. So we will notice in the first half of this year, a lot of relationships will dissolve and disappear, that there's more quiet time, there's things feel like they've slowed down as we reorientate ourselves to that space of vibration and frequency. And in those moments of quiet, we're actually feeling ourselves in the grounded version of ourselves. What does it feel like when my heart rate is quieter when we're reading books? What is it like when I don't have that constant chatter in my mind that may not even be mine? I'm thinking of 50,000 things I have to do to make sure everyone feels safe. Like I don't have to do that anymore. But our physical body is reorientating. And that's why things like feel like, on the physical plane, everything feels like it's been a bit more chaotic. It's a redirection. So in the second half of 2024, we get to really be in that space of going, okay, now I'm starting to feel what it feels like to be in my sit bones and in my back, and like our body will start to become far more obvious to us rather than it being just something we lug around through the universe. And so 2024 is a big turning point, being an 8-year, because the physical part of any manifestation is the last part to happen. And so we're in the physical aspect of all of our manifestations. And so we will feel like a lot of magic is going to happen in 2024 because things take a right turn and they work out when we're able to move towards grounding, holding our space, and really loving our desires, even if they feel impossible. Like that's where we're at.
Yeah. I remember when Spirit tells me, or I get an intuitive hit of something that I'm creating or doing or being in, and sometimes my energy contracts because I go, oh, really? I don't want to do that. Oh, I'm not sure. I'll be seen. I'll have to show up differently. And naturally, that's when you're growing into that vibration. That's when you're learning to hold that vibration. And that's what we're really being called to do right now.
Yes. And I think, again, how we started the conversation, this is not for people who are first time awakeners. That's not what this call is about. First time awakeners will still awaken. First time awakeners still in there. Awakeners will always have people to help them first time awaken. There's a lot available for that. This is people that have awakened and awakened and awakened and awakened and now going, and trying to use what they've always done, going, and your body's going, I'm not going to give you the energy, I'm not going to give you the focus, I'm not going to give you any of those things because your awakening time is now different.
Yeah.
And so this conversation is for those people who've been awakening over and over and over and over and over and over again, who are really wanting to be leaders, and leaders meaning of themselves in this new space. For first-time awakeners, is a different conversation for them.
Yeah, absolutely. So those that are listening that are awakened and wanting to create the new earth, the new system, the new way, whatever sits in the realm, what piece of advice would you give them?
So their spiritual connection is what will be guiding them. And there is a new connection, a new conversation, a new level of relationship that's being invited. So become aware of that, number one. And you already know how to do that because you've already got one. But you might find that, your spiritual connection is through practice. So it might be a daily practice, or it could be meditation. You might have a thing that's always been your spiritual connection. What's been asked and revealed right now is a spiritual connection is in with every moment of every day. They're not separate from who we are. And there's an invitation to embody our spiritual knowing in the mundane. So we don't get to forget who we are as we brush our teeth. We don't get to forget who we are as we're cooking dinner. We don't get to forget, because there's this whole I will be spiritual when I go to to Lilly's circle, then I'll be spiritual. But outside of that, I'm still battling through myself. No, we're being invited to be fully expressed and embodied in every aspect of our life. And that's about accepting that invitation and being curious about, I wonder if I was really just embodied and grounded while I was doing the washing. What would that feel like? So we start to realize that we don't ever morph or splinter anymore. That's the first thing to become aware of. The second thing that I fully know and believe is that unless we understand what we feel like grounded, we will never know the real contrast that we're walking with. And this is fun games, because being grounded and being in a grounding mindset or grounding experience is a commitment to knowing your contrasted self versus your grounded or expanded self. And we do that in all different fun ways. I mean, I just ran a 14-day, I call it the Great Grounding Palooza. And I took people through 14 days of different grounding practices as I taught them as well the art of grounding and why we ground, the masculine and feminine connection. And what I found in that 14 days was so amazing, watching people, some have never done this work before, but a lot have been doing work for a long time, was that remembering that each time that we commit to grounding, there's always more. Like, there's not an end point of, grounded now, let's go and let's ground until we're ungrounded, fill the cup up, empty the cup. Let's be grounded and then be grounded some more, be grounded some more, be grounded some more, be grounded some more. And when we're in those places, people get creative and we get connected and we go, that makes sense. We see all the connections come together. Transparency comes, really clear. But also, we build this trust with our bodies. And that is the power of walking through the era of frequency and vibration, we must understand the power and trust our bodies, which we have, for a very long time been taught not to trust. For a very long time, we've been taught to betray. For a very long time, especially sensitive, empathic people, as we said before, were trained to escape our body. It's now a time to be fully in adoration and amazement and deep connection to its power, because we only really have ever scratched the surface of what our body is capable of, not just in our cellular, which is just always blows my mind, what our body's doing every day to keep us alive, but what is not yet unlocked and not yet realised about its healing power and its connectivity and its connectivity with itself, but also with each other. We feel each other and we can understand each other without words, and that's really just the beginning. And so when we can only access that when we're in a grounded, not entangled state. And so this awakening piece for the people who've already been awakening is to really come into your body and understand what it means to be grounded.
Love, love, love. Love, love. I think that's...
And for those people who've been doing this work for a long time, thinking that we were just doing daily practices because it made us feel good, it does make us feel good, but it's also the entryway into this next era. Yeah.
Is there any before we end, is there any last pieces of wisdom you'd like to share with the listeners, Maree?
So one of the things I know that holds people back from really moving into a fully expressed, grounded experience of self is we think we have to wait for the people around us to get there with us. We wait for our family members, our partners, our children, our church, our colleagues, because we're so used to comparing ourselves and have this fear of non-belonging, we sometimes think that I'll do the bit that, we do it in secret, and I'll do the bits that, make me feel good and I have enough of an impact, so it's okay. This is an era where unless you step forward, everybody falls back.
Mm-hmm.
Because we don't have a system or structure or way in which we can say to a friend, you need to read this book, or you need to come to this conference. Because we're creating new, people have to step in, create it. And so if you're that person who knows and have always been led this way and have been the person in your family or at your work or in your business, whatever it is, and you decide that I'm going to be okay, what that means is you're committing everyone else around you who has no awareness to fall back. And we've seen that. We saw that during 2020, 2021, when people making decisions about, other people's rights and their bodies. We saw that when they made those decisions, their whole life and their family's life descended. Mm-hmm. And that is no different, because this portal was opened in 2012. It's getting stronger in 2020, and it's only going to get stronger. So this is the decision that those awakened people must make. And it's not a right or wrong decision, but there is an energetic frequency relationship. So if you go, I've gone far enough, that's okay. But that means that what will happen is we will have two vibrations walking on the planet. And so relationships will disintegrate, relationships will disappear, because we won't see each other anymore, because we're vibrationally in two different worlds. Not hippies versus non-hippies like it used to always be, but we're vibrationally, we just won't see or feel or hear them, and we won't be in the same world, which for some people that might feel like I've gone way over the edge, but that's the reality of how vibration works.
Yeah, totally agree. It's a splitting of consciousness.
Absolutely. And so if you're sitting in relationships where you go, if I do this, then, it won't be good for my marriage or my parents or whatever, I want you to read that, because unless there is a capacity for people to step into or feel, they don't know any different. So unless you create that, they've got no option. You're not giving them a choice. Here's the reality. Our bodies are designed naturally to be grounded. Our natural state is grounded. Energy is always looking to be grounded. It hates being not grounded. That's why we have so much illness and conflict and chaos, is because it's all ungrounded energy. When you ground, the natural state of somebody else is to want to feel what you're putting out. So they're going to follow. If you stop yourself from being fully expressed and expanding, you're giving no one else a choice but to stay exactly where they are. So you're really not just, and I get it, it feels scary, I get it feels unfamiliar, I get it, all of those things, but that's what the invitation is. You ground, they will move with you. And for those who are not ever meant to move with you, that will become clearer quicker. And that's okay. I know that feels weird, but that's actually what's on offer right now.
Yeah.
In a more accelerated way.
Yeah, totally agree. Totally agree. And I think, you know, for a lot of people, that brings up a lot of fear too. Because, you know, they're going to have to start grieving places, spaces, relationships, people just aren't a vibrational match anymore.
And also too, Lily, like with it comes the full capacity for compassion. So we're not like in the old, you know, system, we would learn something and go, oh, I can see that that person's not on the same page, or I feel like I'm being rejected, or I'm not going to, if I really speak my truth, I'm not going to belong. That's the old system. In the new way, we go, I've got no other choice but to be fully expressed. And that comes with a vibrational reality. When we live that vibrational reality by being in a grounding state and fully wanting to express where we're going, more opens up. And so we have greater capacity to hold people with compassion, which means we're no longer in that contrast with them. We're always inviting them forward energetically, and their inner being, that's what they're after for those who are here, because not everyone's here to do that. Like, we also need to accept that some people are here to stand with the cow prod and prod us forward, right? Not everyone's here to expand. Like, their sole purpose is to piss us off enough that we keep going, right? But we go, no way I want to be like that person, so we keep moving. And we have to accept those people on the planet as well as part of the evolution, which is hard sometimes. But, you know, if they weren't around, we'd all just be doing nothing. So we do need that tension and that.
It's like I say, just not on the same timeline.
No, exactly. That's exactly what it is. We're not on the same timeline.
They're not that person. As much as I love them, they're not on the same timeline. And that's, you know, that's something that, like, that's what I say. They're just on a different timeline. They're in a different phase. And once I say that, you can normally it's easy if you, it's easy. It's easier because you're putting it into perspective.
And also to release us from your having to hold them in your energetic system. Yeah. So when we go, look, they're just not on our timeline, I don't have to hold space for that person anymore. Whereas when we're sitting there worrying or complaining or pointing fingers at people, we're holding, that's actually in our energy system. That bogs us down. We don't need that anymore, which is why when we split to, you know, vibration and frequency, everything's quicker because everything's cleaner, because they don't fit in that vibration with you. But you first have to set that vibration over and over and over again.
Yeah, totally agree. Look, I love talking to you, Maree, and we could talk for like hours and hours. For those that are listening, what sacred offerings do you have available to people right now, and how can people contact you?
So if you're really wanting to get into a beautiful connection, I'll come and join the Palooza. It's a $59 ticket. Like, the entry level is real. I made it as simple as I can for people. You get me every day for 14 days, and there's a community where you can ask questions of me. If you want to get back into a space, if you want to learn more about energy vibration and how you have that in your day every day, I would say come and join the Palooza and come to my Instagram page to join that. That's the easiest way. And of course, I have other programs, Pathways to Prosperity, where we talk about entanglement and conscious entanglement. But come and join me on Instagram and have a chat, and we can, I'd love to connect and find out where you're all at.
Awesome. And I will put that in the show notes too, Maree. Thank you, Maree, for sharing your wisdom, your love, and your heart with the listeners today. I know that so many people would have got so much out of this conversation, and I think that it's time now for the intuitives, the wisdom keepers, to rise. I think we've really been called
Absolutely.
to grow up now.
Absolutely, and that your baggage we've walked around with what that means, even to be empathic and sensitive, it's just like, no. This is just who you are. Deal with it. Come into your body. I know I make it sound really simple, but it is that it's actually the energy from where we've been to where we're going is actually like a password to get in or out. Like you're either there or you're not. And we can't take the old way in there because it will just spit you back out again. It's just a different world. And it's so exciting to know that wisdom keepers, way showers, intuitives, empaths are going to be resetting environments and resetting the way that we come together. And that's really exciting because we're not coming now from the lowest common denominator of consciousness. We're coming for some of the highest.
Yeah.
And that's a massive shift, and that's really exciting.
Yeah, it is exciting. Thank you, Maree.
Thank you, Lilly, for having me here. Whew, that was like, that just got
a lot.
pulled through. That was a lot. Sorry about that. It was a lot.
No, don't apologise. That was a lot. There's a lot for people to receive. So that was awesome.
Thank you.